If you hear someone call your name in the woods at night, do not answer them. I don't care if the voice sounds familiar. I don't care if it sounds injured. And I definitely don't care if it sounds exactly like someone you know. Because according to some park rangers, there are things in certain forests that learn people by listening. And once they hear your voice answer back, they know where to find you. A group of 4 friends learned that the hard way during a camping trip several years ago. At first, they thought someone was messing with them. By sunrise, one of them was missing. It happened during late autumn in a heavily wooded area several hours from the nearest town. The campsite wasn't official, just an old clearing near a hiking trail that locals occasionally used for camping. Remote enough that you wouldn't see other people at night, but still close enough to reach by car. The 4 friends arrived just before sunset. Cold air, strong wind moving through the trees. Nothing unusual. They unloaded gear, started a fire, and settled in for the night. At first, everything felt normal. They cooked food over the fire, played music quietly, talked about random stories from previous trips. Then eventually the conversation shifted toward strange experiences people claim to have had in forests nearby. One of them mentioned hearing a ranger once warn hikers not to respond to voices in the woods after dark. The others laughed immediately. Someone joked about ghosts. Another joked about skinwalkers. But the friend stayed serious. He said the ranger told him there were cases where people reported hearing family members calling for help deep in the trees at night. Sometimes children. Sometimes women crying. Sometimes voices sounding exactly like people they were camping with. One of them asked what the ranger thought it was. The friend shrugged, then repeated exactly what the ranger had told him. If you hear something call your name out there, make sure you can see what's speaking before you answer it. That got quieter reactions, not because anyone believed it, but because the forest around them suddenly felt very dark, very empty. Hours passed. The fire burned lower. Eventually, one of them stood up to grab something from his tent near the edge of the clearing. That was when he heard it. His name. Soft. Distant. Somewhere out in the trees behind camp. At first he thought one of his friends was joking, so without thinking, he answered, "What?" The second he spoke, everything changed. The campsite went completely silent. No conversation, no laughter. Even the wind somehow seemed quieter, because everyone around the fire had heard the voice too. And it hadn't sounded normal. It sounded almost human, but not completely. The tone was slightly wrong, like someone trying to copy how people speak without fully understanding it. The friend near the tent stared into the trees. "Did you guys hear that?" Nobody answered immediately. Then the voice came again. Same name. Closer this time. Close enough that it sounded just beyond the tree line surrounding camp. One friend stood immediately. "Nope. Ignore it." The nervous laughter was gone now. Nobody joked anymore. The voice spoke a third time. Closer again. And this time, it sounded better, cleaner, more natural, like it was improving. One of them grabbed a flashlight and pointed it toward the woods. The beam moved between tree trunks. Nothing there. No movement. No person. No animal. Then, suddenly, another voice called out from much deeper in the forest. A different friend's name. That was the moment panic started settling in, because now it wasn't repeating sounds randomly. It was choosing names, learning them. The group instinctively moved closer together near the fire. Nobody wanted to stand near the edge of camp anymore. The friend who first answered kept apologizing nervously. trying to convince himself someone nearby was playing a prank. But deep down, nobody believed that anymore, because every time the voices returned, they sounded more accurate, more human, and somehow closer, without any sound of movement between calls. No footsteps, no snapping branches, nothing crossing through leaves, just sudden changes in distance, as if whatever was out there wasn't moving normally. Around midnight, they decided to leave. Immediately. No debate, no waiting until morning. Something felt wrong enough that nobody cared about overreacting anymore. They packed quickly while staying close together around the firelight. That was when the whisper came from behind one of the tents. "Don't leave yet." Everyone froze instantly because the voice sounded exactly like one of them. Perfectly. Same tone, same pitch. The problem was, the real person was standing beside them when it happened. Nobody moved. Nobody even looked toward the tent. Then the whisper came again. Closer. More confident now. Almost amused. One friend slowly pointed toward the trees beyond camp. At first, nobody saw anything. Then the fire shifted in the wind, and for 1 second, something tall moved between the trunks, too thin, too tall, visible only briefly before disappearing again. That was enough. They abandoned half their gear immediately and headed for the cars. Fast. Nobody cared about the supplies anymore. As they hurried down the narrow dirt road leading away from camp, the voices followed them, calling from different directions through the forest, sometimes close beside them, sometimes deeper in the trees, using all 4 of their names. One voice sounded like a stranger. Another sounded exactly like one of the campers. Then came laughing, low, quiet. Somewhere in the darkness beside the road. One friend nearly stopped running when he heard a woman crying deeper in the forest, begging for help, sounding terrified. But mixed into the crying were their names, repeated over and over. The closer they got to the vehicles, the more aggressive the voices became. No longer calm, no longer curious, now angry, shouting through the trees from multiple directions at once. Then one of the friends screamed. Everyone turned. One of them was gone, just gone. 1 second he had been behind them. The next, nothing. No footsteps, no crash through bushes, nothing. The group started yelling his name immediately, and somewhere deep in the woods, something answered back using his voice, perfectly, that nearly broke them. One friend wanted to go after him. Another physically stopped him, because now the forest around them sounded full of voices, different tones, different people, some laughing, some whispering, some calling their names softly from the dark. Then suddenly, the missing friend stumbled out of the trees near the road, breathing heavily, terrified, claiming he had followed someone he thought was part of the group after hearing them call for help. But according to him, the thing leading him never turned around. Not once. They reached the cars moments later and left immediately. Nobody spoke much during the drive home. The missing friend stayed unusually quiet the entire time, just staring out the window. Then about halfway back, he quietly asked a question that made everyone in the car go silent. "Why did you keep calling me from the trees?" They turned toward him immediately. Nobody had answered him. Nobody had gone into the woods after him. The friend slowly looked back toward them, confused, then afraid, because according to him, he had heard all 3 of them calling his name repeatedly from deeper in the forest. Years later, none of them camped there anymore. And one of them still refuses to talk about what happened that night at all. But the others agree on one thing. If you hear someone calling your name in the woods after dark, make sure you can see who's speaking before you answer, because sometimes the thing calling you already knows exactly who you are.